In our first story, President Akufo-Addo says he disagrees with suggestions that the Chief Justice and other Supreme Court justices be removed from the General Legal Council. Speaking at the International Conference on the Future of Legal Education in Ghana and Africa, organized by the University of Ghana School of Law, the President called for the fast-tracking of a new bill prepared by the Attorney General to reform legal education and practice. Michael Ashali reports.
There's been a lot of talk recently about reforming education and practice of law in the country. Evidently, there is a split in opinion on how to go about this. Through a private member's bill, some MPs have proposed the removal of the Chief Justice and other Supreme Court justices from the General Legal Council. But President Akufo-Addo is against that. He believes the justices play an important role on the council and must be maintained. The President maintains the General Legal Council must have the final say with the proposed amendments to the Legal Professions Act.
I believe that even if the new Legal Professions Act, which is under consideration, provides for a multiplicity of law schools to regulate the teaching of the professional examinations and break the monopoly of the General Legal Council in that regard, there can be no substitute for the General Legal Council being responsible for the maintenance of standards in the new system. A reform of the system under which legal education currently operates is necessary to accommodate our current realities. The system we come up with will have to be guided by a strong element of sustainability. Sustainable legal education will have as its base the establishment of a regime that will consider the pressing needs of the growing law student population and the expected demands of the generation unborn that will study law. It will be qualitative in its operation, but with a fair and balanced quantitative selection system.
The President also tasked the Attorney General to fast-track processes to present the bill before Parliament for passage into law.
I've already asked the Attorney General to fast-track the process of consultations on the new legal professional bill and lay it before Cabinet and ultimately Parliament as soon as possible. This bill aims to address comprehensively the issues of legal education in Ghana today. I have to restate my conviction that the General Legal Council must have the final say.
Also at this event was Minister for Justice and Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, who says extensive consultation will be done before the draft bill goes to Parliament.
Mr. President, the destiny of the nation is at stake. A lot of honesty, good faith, and dispassionate introspection is required for this conference to achieve what I term the twin objective of broadening access to legal education whilst preserving the integrity and quality of the profession. I place emphasis on good faith, because in recent times, the discussions bordering on the theme chosen for this conference has been characterized by a lot of politicking and petty point scoring for parochial ends. I will share with you a practical example. To my utter surprise and consternation, I saw a document being spread around social media and the mass media as the Attorney General's Legal Profession Bill. With unrestrained haste, various persons of high standing in society, including professors and senior lawyers, rushed to the media to make all manner of comments, virtually casting aspersions at the integrity of the Office of the Attorney General for coming up with such a bill. May I take this opportunity to disclose that I have not come up with any new legal profession bill. In point of fact, there has not been any legal profession bill drafted by the Office of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice and Minister of Justice this year. No approval has been sought by me from Cabinet for a legal profession bill to be sent to Parliament, and for that matter, no legal profession bill has been submitted to Parliament. Even the most basic step we undertake as part of a process for legislative drafting, i.e. stakeholder engagement, has not been performed for any legal profession bill to be laid in Parliament. I wrote to the sponsor of the legislation, the General Legal Council, presenting my comments on the bill. I asked for the chairman of the General Legal Council to present his responses to my comments on the bill. I further respectfully advise that, and I quote, in view of the fact that the bill will replace the Legal Professions Act 1960 Act 32, there is a need for a broad stakeholder engagement for the input of stakeholders to be incorporated into the bill. I merely attached a copy of the draft, which was exactly the same as has been laid in Parliament 2 years ago, to my letter, so that the General Legal Council will be guided and be in a better position to appreciate my comments on the bill and present their responses to same. In light of these facts, how can it be reasonably contended that the legal profession bill has been laid for the constitution of Parliament?
Michael Ashali's report for Joy News.
National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values claim the practice of homosexuality is a mental disorder. The group also says only 0.02% of Ghanaians are involved in the act and only 6% of the homosexual population are born with those tendencies. Professor Kwesi Osei, a member of the coalition, has been addressing the parliamentary committee tasked to consider a memo on the anti-LGBT bill.
Tells you that, look, my condition is normal for me, it is false. There is a scientific determination of what is normal. And I'm saying that 1 to 3% of the population as homosexuals cannot be said to be normal because they fall outside the Gaussian distribution. Having said so, the other question is it mental illness or not? By definition, yes, it is mental illness. It is. And by the way, mental illness does not mean the person is gone naked on the streets. You could be mentally ill and yet very well dressed. So the fact that the person may be well dressed does not make the person normal or well. In fact, by definition, it is. And you go through how we define something as mental illness. We have a set of criteria for diagnosing mental illness. So if you hear somebody has depression, somebody has schizophrenia, the person satisfies these 5 criteria. In fact, the first 4 are mandatory. The 5th may or may not be there. So there must be a departure from the norm. Departure, that means it's abnormal from the Gaussian distribution I showed. That departure must be severe. That departure must be persistent. And it must cause pain or distress to the person or the society. So if I have a certain behavior that causes me pain or causes pain or distress to the rest of the people, plus the 3 others, that by definition constitutes mental illness. And the 5th is that it may be associated with other abnormalities. It may, because it's not always so. There are some conditions that we call it circumscribed abnormality. That is still a mental illness. Now these days, if you put this argument, the degenerate science, and I say degenerate, will say, oh, but you've removed sexual perversion from the list of conditions. Just to satisfy an ideological stand, they have deliberately removed sexual perversion. So they'll look at all those things and say that once they remove homosexuality, that we say that we are removing from the list of abnormalities, it used to be in a class of conditions. And those things still remain. Pedophilia, a 16-year-old man decides that my interest in sex is to go for a 2-year-old girl, and not just once, that is my persistence. Pedophilia is abnormal, it's mental illness. Somebody decides that my interest is to go for somebody who is dead, a dead person, and not just once, that's my tendency. Necrophilia is mental illness. Somebody decides that my interest is with animal, bestiality, or zoophilia. It is mental illness.
Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for Abraha West Issah says the promotion of sexual human rights and family value bill in its current form discriminates against members of the LGBT community. In the view of the MP, if oral sex amongst heterosexuals is an offence under the country's current law, yet permitted, then proponents of the bill should avoid gagging members of the same sex indulged in those acts.
Even too interested in the for and against aspect of it. When you're crafting legislation, every word has a meaning. And we have to be mindful of its conformity with our laws, existing legislation, the Constitution, and international conventions and obligations that we've signed up to. So many of the questions that are being asked are to elicit more information from those who presented memoranda on one aspect of it or the other. I was concerned this morning, and I think I raised that point, with some unintended consequences of the bill. When you look at the definition of Ghanaian family values, and the criminalization of those who don't promote or support or act in conformity with those defined family values. And so some unintended consequences may be the criminalization of untruthfulness, lack of compassion.
You talk about laziness?
Laziness, yes, if you're not hardworking or disciplined or don't exhibit good neighborliness.
Well, they say that's far-fetched.
But that is what the actual wording of the bill says, when you look at it critically. So it is through this engagement that you draw the attention of the proponents to some of the more disturbing aspects of the bill. And then when we're doing the clause-by-clause interrogation, we amend, delete, add, and clean it up, more or less. So all the questions we're asking is when people ask whether you are for or against the bill, I said they're missing the point.
Yeah, particularly you have been asking whether you are for or against.
It's neither here nor there.
The impression, many, in fact, I've checked Facebook comments, it's Facebook Live, I've checked some comments, and they're asking, I mean, are you support or are you against the bill? Because some of the commenters feel your questioning sought to impugn or pollute the bill.
Like which ones?
Well, that's general.
You know, I've just given you an illustration of some of the provisions that I find problematic, or the definition of intersex as somebody who is, you know, and I've read it through and through and made some comments about it. Act 1, Clause 1. Someone who has a biological anomaly, including a person who is intersex, is affected by this bill. A biological anomaly, what does that mean? You know, it is so loosely couched that it can affect people who, or groups of people who were not intended in the minds of the drafters of the bill to be caught by it. So our job as a committee is to interrogate the words, their positioning, what they mean, look at it in conjunction with other existing legislation, international conventions that we've signed up to.
Away from that, experts in climate change, fisheries and human rights under the One Ocean Hub Ghana are asking policymakers in the country to ensure that the voices of those whose lives depend directly on the ocean are incorporated in policies that govern the ocean. Country Director of One Ocean Hub Ghana project, Professor Benjamin Kofi Nyako, believes a departure from the top-bottom approach type of ocean governance would help deal with the dwindling marine life and reduce the impact of tidal waves that occasionally rock some coastal communities. Richard Kojanyako has more in this report.
The day's awareness forum was to build the capacity of fish processors and mongers in the two fishing communities to network and join forces to voice their problems to make it stronger for government and other institutions to make policies to address them. Country Director of One Ocean Hub Project Ghana, Professor Benjamin Kofi Nyako, stated that the ocean has been under various forms of pressure in respect of climate change and pollution, but trying to understand some of the problems that brought pressure into the ocean were disjointed and required the voices of those whose lives depend directly on the ocean.
The One Ocean Hub brings together researchers to help us have a transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary research in order to understand the ocean in a holistic manner, also to have evidence-based research so that it can be inputted for policy purposes. Whatever Accra says, whatever the policymakers say, they expect the fisher folks. They don't incorporate the various aspects in which, or the various customs in which the fisher folks are used to. There are various intangibles which could go into making policies and also enhance their well-being, or for them to be recognized, but they don't recognize that. So the policy is always vague and people don't always abide by the policies.
Law lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Bolanle Erinosho, explains why the intervention of the One Ocean Hub is particularly important to deal with the climatic change issues and also to deal with the associated human rights violations.
how they live, their culture, their traditions. You know, if the sea levels rise, there'll be displacement amongst many of these communities. And this particular program is targeted at women. And the reason we're targeting it at women is we believe women are at the center of many coastal communities. They are essentially responsible for nutrition of their children, for the welfare of their families. And so if there is any kind of disruptions, either caused by climate change or even other intractable challenges such as decline in fish stocks, they are more closely or more particularly affected than perhaps other members. So we believe that even within vulnerable and marginalized communities, the plight of women is particularly crucial or pressing because they are right at the center of families. And if they're affected, the family is affected, and that kind of spills out to the community. There has been a lot, both internationally as well as nationally, in terms of commitments and obligations by governments at the international level and national level around human rights.
Some of the women in fisheries spoke about their challenges and called for support from governments. If our men do not get any catch, we become powerless as well because we depend on them. So the teenage pregnancies that are prevalent along the coast are due to the lack of funds to support our activities.
In the Ashanti region, engineers at Ghana Grid Company Limited, GridCo, say its damaged central transmission line is the cause of the recent power outages in Greater Kumasi. Two of the central transmission lines have been damaged by a communications tower in the northern district of the GridCo setup. The situation has compelled the power generating company to ration power in the evening. Prince Appiah has more in this report.
For the past 2 weeks, the power situation in Greater Kumasi have been unstable and unbearable. As a result, electricity consumers, especially small businesses, have been reeling under the current power challenges.
Yesterday, in fact, we really have a terrible night. Our light went off again and again for about 8 times during the night till daybreak. So when I wake up, most of my bulbs, the veranda, the bedroom, the hall, everything got bent. I don't know what will happen today again.
Yesterday around 8:30 in the evening, I was with a couple of friends, having a conversation when the light just went off, and it just came back off on and off, and we noticed that every time it came back on, the lights were too bright, like it was brighter than usual. Very bright. I had to even cover my eyes, and that was when I started seeing some of the bulbs in the area just going off, like boom, 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 like that.
But engineers at the Ghana Grid Company Limited, GridCo, say 2 of its central transmission lines have been damaged by a communication tower in the northern part of the GridCo setup. Northern Network Services for GridCo, Vincent Boache, explains this has been the cause of the power situation in the region.
Unfortunately, a communication tower fell on a highway. We have a 330,000 volt line coming all the way from Abuazi through Kumasi, through Kintampo, Tamale to Boga. And that is what we call our central transmission backbone. A communication tower that is about 100 meters away from our transmission line fell on our transmission line, and it broke 2 of our towers and damaged the 3rd one. For one of the towers, even the foundation was damaged, and so we had to excavate the foundation and reconstruct it. So that is what has led to some amount of load management in Kumasi during the peak load, which is usually between 5 p.m. and about 11 p.m. So, but until we are able to restore this transmission line, we say that we are in an alert state. So it means that going off in the evening is possible, yes.
Though repair works have begun to address the situation, Mr. Boache says power consumers in the region will have to endure the doomsday situation till December 20, 2021.
We expect that we should finish this transmission line work before the 20th of December. On or before the 20th of December. Yes. So that the assurance is that we are doing this work as quickly as possible. In the budget, the national budget for 2020, there were some other works that are supposed to also be done in Kumasi, so that even if we have a situation like what we have now, we will be able to avert shedding load in Kumasi. And the one is the relocation of the Ameri plant to Kumasi. We also have voltage correction equipment that we are supposed to install at our substation at Ahonjo. And then a third bulk supply point that is supposed to come up around the Offenso area. So all these works are also being done.
Prince Apia reporting.
That's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Mapitso CBD. The AM Show continues.